I'll also ask that out of respect for our presenters, you remain muted until you're called on during the Q&A time within the meeting. So today's presenters responded to a national call that asked artists to think three-dimensionally and propose a sculptural design that would physically transform an existing bus structure in Winston-Salem. From an amazing pool of artists, our selection committee chose Stephan, Heidi Zenishek, and Sam Wilson as the finalists for the Hanes Mall Bus Shelter. The committee was particularly excited by these artists as each person had thoughtfully considered the site of the bus shelter. Knowing that Hanes Mall is a busy commercial area, it was important to the committee that these designs gave a sense of playfulness and vibrancy. So for tonight's meeting, each artist will have 10 minutes to present, and then we'll have around 5 minutes for Q&A. I'll be moderating the Q&A, so just either post those questions you have in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and unmute to ask a question. Then at the end of today's meeting, I'm going to provide a survey link so that you can provide your feedback and inform the committee on who you would want to select. Also, if you're having any technical issues, please send me a direct message in the chat. Keep in mind that we do have captions that you can turn on, and the best viewer experience would probably just to go into speaker view so that all of the presentations are large on your screen. So to kick off our meeting, I'd like to hand over to Aaron. Aaron Stephan lives in Portland, Maine. He has an MFA from the Maine College of Art. He's been a practicing artist for almost 2 decades with a long record of exhibitions and participation in prominent residencies such as Skowhegan and Yaddo. His public art spans the country with recent commissions in Seattle, Washington, Somerville, Massachusetts, and Tampa, Florida. So I'm going to hand it off to Aaron.
Great, thank you, Erica. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really, I don't know, being the first one presenting feels like a little bit of pressure, but I'll roll with it. I'm really excited to bring you this project today. The bus shelter that I've developed a project for is the Hanes Mall's bus shelter. But before we get to that, I kind of want to go over a couple past works just to give you an idea how I approach a site. For me, art's a dialogue, right? And where you place it, all the people that interact with it, and how it speaks to those things over time are all components that define any piece, right? And so for that reason, I create pieces out of their own context, right? And I use forms and ideas in direct response to the piece's environment. This piece is called Point of View. It's at Salt Lake City Convention Center, and it consists of over 100 standard street signs that are in front of the city's convention center. And from directly in front of the building, you could just get this large "You Are Here" logo. But if you move onto the site, onto the street perpendicular to the site, that logo kind of disintegrates. You're left with all these individual signs, and each kind of presents a dichotomy or speaks to like different ideas that define your location. So you have this one piece that really fluctuates between that larger whole and the smaller individual messages. The second piece I'm going to show you is called Luminous Remembrance. This was for the city of Lubbock, Texas. This also pulls materials directly out of its own environment. So there's 4 pieces that are spread throughout this public park, and each piece builds off of the other one, and it expresses a series of kind of like emotions through gesture. All the pieces are kind of like set in this loose narrative, and it encourages this process of discovery through the park. And so to move on to the Hanes Mall bus shelter, for me, the project that I'm bringing you is really just a playful response to the bus shelter. There's kind of like 2 basic ideas I started off with. And number one is, the notion of the bus shelter is it's an identical node within this huge network, right? And in this way, the bus shelter is transitory. And really, if we're being honest, it's often hard to tell the difference from one bus shelter to another, right? And for me, it was really important to break that. In addition to this, bus stops also represent a choice, right? They give you a decision of what direction to take, where to go, what path to traverse, and that decision could be life-changing, or it could be really small. As I worked through this project, I kept returning to my own life, and my kind of like memory of being in spaces like this. And it always seems to be connected to substantial life choice, right? Whether it's getting on a bus to going to college, leaving somebody after a breakup. I don't know. There's a lot of waiting the bus stop to go to the mall to buy a CD, which I think probably dates me. But in my mind, the space is always tied to decision, right? And so this project that I developed kind of gives voice to those choices, but also tries to provide a really strong identity for the bus shelter that's both meaningful and playful. Um, so the piece is called Always, Always. It consists of traditional one-way street signs, but that one way is replaced by a variety of word plays, including each way, my way, halfway, amongst many others. And so the bus shelters function as a place where direction decided and futures are cemented are expressed through these signs, right? In addition to this, I think it's really important that the work is taking the street sign, which is something that's normally just really restrictive, right? And it's creating this expansive artwork out of them. And so instead of narrowing things down, it's providing a variety of choices and expanding out into the world. And so there's this sense of like openness and opportunity to the piece as well. The work is made from 80 custom printed street signs. They're made from aluminum and they have what's called the engineer grade film on it. And it's basically how a standard street sign is made. I've worked with this format on a few different projects, including that piece in Salt Lake City. And the result is this really durable artwork. And the components can be easily replaced in case of damage. And it's easy to maintain. And so altogether, the piece creates this dynamic identity for the shelter. It's viewable from multiple directions. It's budget friendly, thought-provoking, fun, and durable. The piece is located at the Hanes Mall Boulevard bus station, which is adjacent to that Silas Creek crossing. For me, this is an interesting site because you're not only approaching the bus stop on foot and experiencing it on foot, but you also see it passing in a car. So you get these great views of the work. And so I really wanted to make sure the piece stuck out and had a presence from both of these different viewpoints, right? And then I think another important component for me is the ability of the work to remain engaging through multiple visits, right? Like I'm constantly trying to think about who's experiencing the artwork, how many times they're going to experience it. And it's most likely that the people that are going to experience this work are going to experience it over and over again for a long period of time. And so for me, I like this piece because it can continue to give. There's a lot of text you can dive into, discover a relationship to it, and over time kind of discover how it changes meaning for you. The piece itself is about 6 feet tall. That's on top of the bus shelter, which is about 8 feet tall. And the signs are about standard size, which is about 32 inches long by 18 or by 10 inches wide. All the signs are made from, like I said, it's this engineer grade film on aluminum blanks. And the film has these tiny glass beads embedded in it. So it's like really refractive at night. So you get these really great effects, especially if it's mounted at different angles like that. The entire piece is mounted on this structure that's aluminum. Here's some details of that support array. It's made by the base part is made by 3x3 square aluminum tube, and the posts themselves are made from 2x2 inch aluminum tube. And that entire component will be welded together and bolted to the bus shelter frame. And each sign is bolted to that structure with anti-theft bolts just to try to prevent a little bit of vandalism. Installation is fairly simple. All the work will be done on a small material lift. The work will be delivered to site in one piece pre-assembled, and then could be just lifted into place and bolted to the shelter frame. Maintenance is fairly straightforward. These signs last well beyond 30 years. They're really easily cleanable with standard cleaner. And what has worked out really great, especially with that piece in Salt Lake City, because it gets tagged a lot, is that the city has a sign department that I provided them with digital files, and you can just print up a new sign anytime you ever want to. So if there's any like drastic damage, it's really easy to kind of replace those signs and kind of keep it fresh, right? And so to finish, I just have this short video. I was trying to get different views of the piece, and I just thought it would be easier to have this really simple video that kind of shows what it looks like. Also thinking about as you're driving by, you get this really kind of, impressive view of the work. And then, like I said, as you get closer, you can kind of read all the different signs and kind of glean this different meaning out of it. I apologize with this. The video has one-way signs. It was immensely more difficult to replace all those signs with a custom one. So, and I'm going to stop there and I guess open it up for questions. Please tell me you could hear me as I was talking.
Yes, yeah.
Awesome.
I go back to. We don't have any notes in the chat at this moment, but if anybody does want to just unmute themselves. Oh, I see one from Wilkins family. How long is the installation process?
Honestly, it's one day. The great thing about this is using aluminum sign blanks. It's really light. And so basically what I can do is pre-assemble the entire thing in my studio, deliver it on the truck, and basically installation is taking out the truck, putting it on the bus stop and bolting it down. And so it should be a one day install. Yeah.
Like anyone else wants to speak up, feel free to unmute. Yeah, Fredo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as the reflective film, are they all going to be black and white?
Yep.
Don't you think that's a little flat to be an artist? Just
I don't. I mean, what I'm constantly, as an artist, what I'm constantly paying attention to is taking something from our environment and creating something really beautiful out of it. And basically, I'm trying to make sure that I'm taking a standard street sign and I'm trying to show how beautiful that can be, right? And so for me, that's a decision to go with it black and white, so it kind of ties it to what that originally is. I think that's beautiful. Um, you may not.
well,
Go ahead.
there's several different colors, like the construction signs, the
Sure.
school signs. They're yellow and orange, and
Sure.
there's a vast variety of different colors to choose from than just black and white.
Yep.
I have a few more questions, if you don't mind. I'm curious, we have another question that's just asking, how will bad weather affect the signs, snow, rain, wind?
I mean, it's kind of one of the nice things about using the street signs is there's a precedent for all those, and so we know exactly. I even have calculations on how much they vibrate. So you maintain a certain distance between each sign. So as the wind hits them, they don't hit each other. But they act as any other street sign does, which is really nice with a project like this, because then you don't have to do the engineering on that stuff because you know what all those numbers are.
Neat. And another question is, will the aluminum be recycled?
Sure.
Cool.
I mean, most aluminum that you're getting these days is already recycled. So
Nice. And then one other question was just about whether these signs would fade in the sun.
They do, but it's a standard street sign is valid. I think for 30 years is their life cycle, and that's as a standard to stand up to that like really high visibility. I've seen them at like 50 years and they're still really good. But so if anything, we know that, and it's also one of those things where you're using the material that there's already precedent for, so you know what the time frame is. So there's at least a 30-year time frame to it. And then I'll also point out too that if you have this array, the mounting array for the signs, and you have the digital files for the signs, that you could even completely renew the piece for, I forget what the budget is for the signs, but I mean I think it's like $3,000 or $4,000. You could completely replace all the signs in case you wanted to do that in 30 years, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Really appreciate everyone's questions. Does anyone else have one, or do you? Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Cool. So we're gonna move on to Heidi. And just a quick introduction. Heidi Zenishek lives in Greensboro, North Carolina. She has exhibited throughout the United States and Iceland, and has participated in numerous residencies such as Haima, Franconia Sculpture Park, and Salem Artworks. She holds a BFA from the University of Iowa, an MA from Eastern Illinois University, and an MFA from the University of Maryland. I'm going to hand it off to Heidi. Thanks so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming and listening. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Okay. Let's see. So, Hanes Mall Bus Shelter, adding magic to the moments in between. So the main reason I thought a bus shelter would be really amazing for this material to be on is that all the sides are clear, and the magic really happens with this material when the sun and different light interacts with it. So the plan is to have these acrylic panels and bracket them together in this sort of pleated design. And as you can see, I decided to go with a physical maquette that I made because this material is like a nightmare to figure out a digital rendering of. So I have not yet mastered that. But anyways, here's my small maquette. So I will use UV resistant acrylic panels, 1/2 inch, and then apply this dichroic film to the panels. It's a window film. And then each panel will be held together by these brackets and bracketed to the side of the bus shelter. What is dichroic film, you might ask? So dichroism is when the material splits light. So what passes through is a spectrum of blues, pinks, and purples. In this piece on the right, you can see, here's the material, and the light that passes through it is right here. And then the shadow that reflects back off of it is greens, yellows, and oranges. So here's another example of what it's like being lit from within. So, the surfaces are very different. So I think with the sun at different times of day is going to be interesting. And at night, when it's lit from within, it's going to be a whole other experience. So, yeah, these dichroic panels will cast colorful shadow onto the ground and to the inside of the bus shelter as the sun moves around it. So in this image, you can see these pinks and oranges beginning to show, and these other fun light shadows beginning to scatter across the ground. The panels themselves are transparent, but but they shift in color as you move around it. It's a highly attractive material that draws you in and really makes you want to walk around it and investigate, not just experience it from within the bus shelter. So when I use this material, I always think it's very reminiscent of crystals in the way that its facets reflect and refract these spectrums of light. And I was thinking about how engineers say that quartz and crystals emit a frequency, like a vibration. So I like the thought of giving a charge to the space that we pause in and wait for the bus. It will add magic to this moment of in between that a bus shelter is. We use it for waiting. So adding a bit of charge to those moments. It's such a curious and unique material. This bus shelter has the potential to move beyond a simple functionality of a bus stop and become a sculptural destination to visit, spend time with, perhaps take a selfie or two. In my personal opinion, it's the epitome of playful and will add vibrance to the area. So install would take a day. I will assemble it in my studio. It'll come in 3 pieces, the back and then each side, and it just can quickly be bolted onto the existing structure. Each material is going to be used for what it's made for. You know, acrylic is used all the time outside, and these brackets. And then the diacrylic film is a window film, so it's made to withstand long sun exposures. Yeah, short and sweet. Do we have any questions?
Cool. Yep, so anyone can feel free to post your questions in the chat and I'll ask them, or just unmute if you want. So we do have one question. Are the panels breakable?
They're thick enough. I was thinking either 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, so they should not break at all.
Okay, and then
But I will say, if they do break for some reason, the only thing I can think of is like vandalism. They can just be unscrewed and replaced very easily.
Okay.
And cheaply, yeah.
I'll just answer. The person asked about the base being made from concrete, but that's the existing base that already exists. So the artists aren't making the base.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Fredo, I saw your hand raised.
So so God forbid any vandalism, spray paint happens, will they be easily like washable with any chemical? Will they have any chemical?
So the film will be applied on the inside of the panels, so hopefully vandals won't get to the actual film. But I've cleaned it with just like Windex or whatever. It should be pretty resistant to any sort of like cleaning agent, as long as it doesn't melt plastic. So the outside would just be, again, any sort of like anything you could clean plastic with. And, you know, maybe even take like a scraper and you could easily just like scrape off any other sort of material.
This is beautiful. Wow. This one caught my eye so far.
Yeah, I've been obsessed with this material from the moment I found it, because, you know, it's so changes constantly with different light and lighting from external versus internal. I'd be really excited to see what it looks like at night, like lit from within.
Different seasons as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow. Good job.
Thank you.
Have any additional questions?
I will just say I will put a link to my website in the chat if anyone wants to see other things I've made with this material. To get, you know, it's kind of hard to get a full grasp of what the material is until you see it in person. So I'll link up my website.
So if I may ask, you said that the film is on the inside. Are there 2 acrylic panels with the film in the center, or you mean the film is on the inside of the bus stop?
So The film is applied, you have the acrylic panel, and then it's like a loose kind of plastic sheeting. And then you take the backing off and you apply it to the plastic, so it's like stuck on to the plastic. So it'll be just one acrylic panel with the film applied, and then that will be, you know, facing the inside.
And I'm kind of curious, when you have done in past installations and shown light on it, is there ever a moment that the light is like too blinding from the reflections? In terms of just like creating any issues for traffic passing by?
No, I mean, not that I've experienced, because all the time it's ever been like that bright out, it's like becomes transparent, I guess. And at times it is slightly mirrored, like you can see right there, but I don't think, you know, there's enough space, you know, around the bus stop that I don't think it becoming mirrored would be a problem.
Helpful, thanks.
That would be pretty bad to blind the drivers.
And it will be a question an engineer would ask. So, okay, great. Thank you so much, Heidi. If anyone else has questions? Okay, great.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our last presenter for the evening. It's Sam Wilson. Sam lives in Seattle, Washington. He is trained as an architect and has a master's degree in architecture from Kansas State University. He's informed by his architectural training with his art practice, relying on problem solving and building within parameters to create assemblages and sculptures. He has commissions throughout the Seattle area and is on the public art roster for Washington State and the cities of Seattle, Boise, and Auburn. So welcome, Sam.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'd like to start out just thanking everyone for being here and listening to my proposal. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. So I started off this project choosing the site based upon a concept I'd pretty much come up with as soon as I saw that it was near a mall. And that led to this kind of analysis of how people approach and will see the site. Most of the views come from the parking lot of Hanes Mall. And I thought I would focus on this kind of collective nostalgia that we all share for the American Mall as a cultural meeting point, experiential point. We've all spent time there. We've all existed within it. So that's basically where I was at. The bus shelter seeks to embody the nature of this phenomenon into a public-facing work of art. And hopefully we all can relate to it in some way because we've all experienced this type of space. So here, it's just, you know, we experience this nostalgia of a mall, either experienced through media or in contemporary society. And I think that through the years, we've actually formulated these ideas of what was and no longer exists. And even if it's a false reality or the actual reality of what the mall was in an, you know, in the yesteryear, we're still able to manifest an idea of what that feels and looks like. So with that, the bus stop I've created is an attempt to manifest the idea of this communal meeting point within a mall, be it the food court or the interstitial spaces, but we're looking, you know, at this as a collective memory. I've also created alternate colorways for it. And this is a variable thing that I think can be discussed with the community if the project moves forward. Here's a rendering of it in context. So very, you know, visually flashy. You can see it as a pedestrian. You can see it from Hanes Mall. You can see it from vehicles.
I'm sorry, Sam. Are you on the next page? Because it's only showing your site plan still.
Yeah, sorry. You missed all of my my good slides there. Oop. Is this working?
Yep, thanks.
Great, cool. So that was the first one. This is the second one, the alternate colors, just kind of depending on how much pop vibrancy we'd like to see within the project. And then here's a rendering of it in context. And then this basically goes through the materials. Mostly it is powder coated steel or aluminum, depending on the application. So the perforated metal would have to be a steel. And then most of the solid shape cutouts are aluminum, 3/16 inch. And even the material that appears to be marble is a powder coated finish because you can apply powder coat images. Yeah, and everything that is on the sides and back is tight to the glass. So there's very little protrusion of elements, and everything above is where it kind of expands and goes beyond the threshold of ADA and accessibility requirements. And I've just provided some alternate views of the materials. And that's it. I think the installation will take 3 to 4 days on site. It's a little bit of a complex system, and everything is mounted using metal studs and threaded rod within the objects themselves, or plates with bolt holes that are then fastened into the existing structure of the bus stop.
Sam,
Thank
can
you.
you go back to like slides 2 through 4? I think we didn't get to see those. Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
well,
We
first
didn't.
is the, sorry, yeah,
That's okay.
first the concept in writing. Yeah, again, just trying to bring back this nostalgia of this cultural meeting point that we all understand. And then this little diagram relating experience nostalgia, media nostalgia, and then contemporary, mall.
Cool. Thanks. I was hoping to see some mall images.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, apologies for my
Oh, not at
my
all.
slideshow malfunctioning there.
All right. I'm going to open it up to anyone. You can send me a message in the chat or just unmute yourself. Right on.
Hi, Sam.
Hey,
Hey, so just taking a look at the grid here. I love the design, the concept, beautiful, man. It brings me back to the mall back in the 90s. And the thing is, I have kids. I have 3 kids, and they love climbing on things. The grid looks like something that my kids would love to climb. And with this being on the sidewalk in the middle of traffic, accidents can happen. Kids can climb it, accidentally trip, fall into the street. I just feel like it's a little risky to have something like that that's climbable in the middle of traffic.
yeah, I think the reality of this is it's sandwiched against the glass. So and it's a 3/16 material. So the actual ability to wrap your hands around it is extremely limited until it's above the roof plane of the bus stop. Because
Okay.
I did have that concern as well. And I
Okay.
tried to minimize any structure that's able to be grappled and pulled and things like that.
Looks really good. Love it, man.
Thank you.
Just like I said, it just brings me back to the 90s. And it's just everything that's happening right now. People are going back to the future. And with this highlighting the 90s, is just going to bring so much nostalgic feeling and just makes me want to go to the mall even more.
Right on. I love that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you, Fredo.
The shadows are really fun.
Oh yeah, thank you. And they'll change throughout the day. So, it is always kind of changing through the light play.
Oh, okay, one question. How are the items connected to the shelter and could they be pulled or manipulated?
Any of the lower objects are going to be fastened at multiple points through the aluminum structure of the existing stop. I suppose if you were to climb up on top of the bus stop, you could, do some pulling and yanking, and there's a way. I guess it's what is the tolerance you're willing to go through to make it something impermeable.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. So, okay, well, I'm going to say that this concludes our community meeting. So thank you to our artists for your wonderful presentations, and just really thanks for everyone for attending. I'm going to paste a link to this survey in the chat. Let me put that in. There you go. So feel free to click on that link and let us know your thoughts on today's presenters and the proposals that they shared with us. And these will help inform the selection committee's decisions. So just to stay up to date on our selection process, you can check out the Public Art Commission's webpage. I'm also going to put our the link to that in the chat. And at the bottom of the page, there's a newsletter link, so you can sign up, and I always send out updates based off of our commissions and then just other announcements as well, like upcoming community meetings. So thanks again for attending. Our next community meeting will be for the Thurmond Street bus shelter, and that will be Tuesday, January 16th at 6 p.m. So I hope you all can make it. But thanks again to our artists. I'll hang out for a few minutes if anyone else wants to chat. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
Great job. Keep doing it.
Oh, thanks for coming.
See you guys
appreciate it.
next one.
Yeah.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye, Sam. Thanks for everything. Thanks, Martha. Glad you made it. I'll send you the recording so you get everything.
Thank you, Erica.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thanks, Erica.
Okay, thanks, April.